Hello my soccer universe. Yes, the Nations League may have many distractors, however it delivered again quite some fun stuff, and I am not that naive to say that every team took this very seriously. However, I still want to think that each of these teams wanted to win and actually made some statements here and there. And yes, the crazy Spain against France game, the defending sometimes was optional, but it was great fun to watch. And so we have an Iberian final coming up. Cristiano Ronaldo shining against Germany, gave them the winner. Missed a few chances, but actually he was a team player in that one, and I really want to laud it, because this is the one criticism I have of Cristiano Ronaldo when he is playing nowadays for Portugal. But Portugal, it is all about the midfield that is just exhilarating, whereas for Spain, yes, this little fella, 18-year-old almost, Lamine Yamal, he is special, but there's also Nico Williams. Oyarzabal had a really great game, and they also have a midfield genius in Pedri, and then they can bring on the Fabian Ruiz. So those are probably the two best midfields in the world, I would argue, at this very moment. Whereas France, if they were not so shot at defense, I think this France team can also be very dangerous with all the offensive talent that they had. Cherki really making a major statement in his first cap for France. Watch out for that player. He's also one for the future. Maybe not on the level of Lamine Yamal, but he's also one for the future for sure. The weird thing is that the France-Spain matchup was really built at this is Lamine Yamal against Dembélé for the Ballon d'Or. Well, I mean, Dembélé really didn't show up all that much, so I don't think it should be decided based on that match. But I don't really want to talk about the Ballon d'Or. Let's recap these two rather interesting semifinals. The first Nations League semi-final ended with a statement win for Portugal and Cristiano's first win over Germany overall. But it was in the first half where I thought not much did happen, except that Germany, when they were dangerous, they were really dangerous, especially Vitinha had a pretty big chance. I think there was another pretty big one there. So I would have given the slight advantage in a rather messy first half to Germany. I was also wondering about the lineup. Why is Vitinha, after his brilliant display in the Champions League final, not playing as a starter? I guess he was partying too much, I don't know, but that didn't make any sense to me. He is probably at the moment Portugal's best player and he's not starting, so rather weird. And in the second half it continues with the pattern that Wirtz takes away the ball, plays it over to Kimmich lobs it over to Wirtz, who heads it in. There was a slight discussion whether Woltemade was obstructing the goalkeeper, but the goal did count. And Germany 1-0 up at home. You really don't think that they are gonna come back. However, then came the substitutions with Vitinha, Chicho, Conceição and Nelson Semedo coming on, and that completely changed the game, because whatever Germany then brought on just a little bit later with Großknabe Füllkrug was not of the same quality, and suddenly Portugal did boss the midfield. It was then Ruben Dias that gets the ball to Francisco Conceição, who runs away from goals, and there's no recovery happen whatsoever. He goes straight onto goal and from the edge of the box unleashes a wonderful shot, and it is 1-1. And from that moment on, Portugal had the upper hand, and it's then a nice attacking move where Nuno Mendes is sent into the box and squares it over to Cristiano Ronaldo, who taps home the winner. However, we also have to say, yes, he got the goal, and huge credit for him. Also, Cristiano Ronaldo put in the work. However, he had also a header and a few other chances where I really thought that he probably could have scored not only a goal, but probably should have had to, but I don't want to be too critical. Portugal saw this out relatively easily, and it could have gotten even more. There were some great saves by Ter Stegen in there. Yes, Gnabry also hit the outside of the post, but overall Portugal were very good for the win. In the last half hour, they completely played Germany off the park, and in this form, Portugal is not only a contender for the Nations League title, but I also would say for the upcoming World Cup. The first semi-final may have given us a surprising result, however it was the second semi-final that was absolutely mad. Spain win it 5-4. However, at one point I had a 4-0 and 5-1 lead, but I was happy that France put back a few goals, because it was way more representative of how that game was. In the first 20 minutes, I think France were actually the better team, despite having a makeshift defense on the back, but they were more attacking going forward. However, it all breaks then when Oyarzabal fends off Konate, in the center of the box, plays it over to Nico Williams, who runs around Kalulu, who made his first start for the French national team, and yanks it onto the center of the goal and into net in the 22nd minute. And not even 180 seconds later, it's again Oyarzabal who plays it onto Merino, who again scores in Stuttgart. Not only had he his first cap there, but he also scored an important goal against Germany in last season's Euros. And it's 2-0 for Spain, a little bit against the run of play. I mean, I'm not saying that Spain were not in the game. However, the 2-0 lead did not really reflect well. And France were even lucky because it could have been 3-0. There was a really nice goal by Huyssen in there as well, but it was called off for an offside. Whereas the Mbappés and Dembélés and so on, they just couldn't get the ball onto the goal or into the net either. So it was a rather weird first half. The one thing you could say is that Spain, once they scored the first goal, they were clinically. It was overall a match that was just wide open, going up and down, left and right, plenty of chances and shots created. This was an absolute feast to watch. And at the beginning of the second half, it was again France who had two pretty good chances. If the pass goes a little bit more to the attacker and not more on the goal, it would have been two tap-ins, especially for Ousmane Dembélé, the second one. And then they give away a penalty, and Lamine Yamal, after juggling the ball on his shoulder, steps up, scores, makes it 3-0. You think the game is done and dusted, especially when just about a minute later, Nico Williams plays it on to Pedri, who puts it into the net, and it is 4-0 Spain. Utter destruction of the French national team. You really couldn't believe that. I mean, if you saw that game, you could see that, yes, the French defense were maybe not up for a snub, but the game was not 4-0 in favor of Spain. Yes, then Spain give away a penalty themselves by Pedro Porro, rather stupidly so. Mbappé steps up. It's 4-1. Maybe there's a comeback on. I mean, at 2-0, even 3-0, I would have thought that France might be able to come back. But then Pedro Porro assists Lamine Yamal, who takes a shot. It was rather weak. Mike Maignan probably should do better on it. It's 5-1 for Spain in the 67th minute. And around that time, I felt that Spain felt too safe already and also made some changes that unsettled the squad. And for France, Ryan Cherki had come on. And while before the game everyone was talking about Yamal against Dembélé, it was Ryan Cherki who was actually then the best player on the pitch, and he scored a wonderful goal from far out. Nice swerve in the 79th minute. France is again within 3, and then just a couple of minutes later, it's a Gusto cross in, and Vivian taps it into his own net, although Mbappé would have been there as well to get that home. 84th minute, 5-3. Is there something happening? Well, France tried, but Spain actually relatively routinely played it out. But France did get one back. Colomboigny, who had before that missed another chance. And yes, the taking shots from far out and putting it over the crossbar was a hallmark of the French attack on that evening. I think there was one by Rabiot as well, where he could have had so many more better opportunities. The same thing was here for Colomboigny. But he then gets his goal in the 93rd minute. However, it was too little too late, but it was an exhilarating 5-4 win. Yes, there was a little lull when it was 4-0 at least, or 5-1. You already knew who the winner was, but overall, this was rather exciting stuff. And so the final is set, but before that we have also a third place playoff. Maybe one that is for once interesting, as Germany take on France. And may I just mention that in Stuttgart yesterday evening, the German public was definitely more on the French side because of this Cucurella guy, handball quarterfinal. I still don't get why everyone needs to whistle Cucurella. He has done nothing wrong. It was the referee that you should whistle. But I guess the German public still cannot forgive that. Be it as it may, the Germans were for France, and that actually really did not feel quite right, given that they are historically enemies, and Germans usually liked Spain a whole lot more, at least when I grew up. So I found that quite interesting, and now Germany have to play France in this third place playoff. Will be an interesting way. Both teams clearly disappointed. I don't think they will field full squads, and I'm not even sure if I'm gonna watch that one. Although I think it's a relatively interesting matchup. But it's all about the final between the two neighbors on the Iberian Peninsula, European champions Spain take on the first Nations League champions in Portugal. We know for sure there will be a record champion. I mean, we knew that as soon as Germany got eliminated, there will be no new champion. And so far, Portugal, France and Spain have won it. Spain and Portugal, one of those will win it for the second time. And it continues a pattern that, as of late, trophy winners in Europe, ever since Germany won the World Cup in 2014, usually came from the Iberian Peninsula, maybe France here and there, once Italy, but it's all southwestern Europe, and especially the Iberian Peninsula. That is a hotspot. Just look at the last few Euro winners. There is a very, very clear pattern, and Spain again, with another win, they would have had 3 titles in 3 years, and yes, those are 2 Nations League titles, but still, that's a major achievement. I, for once, am really gonna look forward to it. This will be a midfield battle, and I think we shouldn't focus so much on the stars on the field, meaning Lamine Yamal and Cristiano Ronaldo, old versus new. I actually think you have to look at the midfield. How will they work that out and add it spices? That, of course, Roberto Martinez, the coach for Portugal, is of course a Spaniard. So rather interesting stuff. I think this will be a fun final, one that you definitely should not miss. And then we can go, after watching a few World Cup qualifiers, go into a well-deserved rest, because the Club World Cup, no. Last thing, I have to talk jerseys in this one as well. We had the very interesting All 2025 Kids first semi-final, the anniversary jersey for Germany and the new Puma jersey for Portugal. It's still a little bit weird to see Portugal play in a Puma jersey. However, I don't dislike this one too much. I especially find the numbers very well crafted in reference to, of course, the logo that the Portuguese have on the chest. And then we had more or less a rematch from the semi-final from last year's Euros, so exactly the same jersey matchup. So it was a 2025 matchup against a 2024 matchup. I'm a little bit gutted that in the final Portugal will probably play in their home jerseys, and then we have Spain playing in these awful away jerseys, and that I'm not so happy with. I guess we will have to live with that one. Question to you, who do you think will win? Will it be Portugal or will it be Spain? A little bit I'm feeling it might be Spain. However, I would love if Portugal could win that one to get one over their Iberian rivals and also kind of really announce themselves as a real contender. I would not be super excited for Cristiano Ronaldo winning another title, but this Portugal team is a really, really exciting one. I think Spain have won enough in the last few years. However, if they win it, they will probably have deserved it as well. Any case, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. I'll talk to you soon about more things in my soccer universe. Bye! Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, here are some videos and playlists that you may enjoy too. Also, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit the little bell icon so you get notified whenever something happens in my soccer universe. And with that, have a wonderful day. Bye!